What's up, military millionaires, real estate investors, YouTube watchers, and other awesome people? Today is the week 5 video of questions that I'm asking real estate rock stars and fellow YouTubers so that you can avoid making the same mistakes they did. And ironically, today's question is, what was your biggest mistake and how did you avoid making it again in the future? Now, I would really appreciate it if you hit that like button, and if you haven't done so already, just subscribe to the channel, maybe hit the little bell so you get notified when new content comes out. It would really help me out. And I know last week you talked about adding value to people when you want to build a relationship with them. That would really help me out. I would really appreciate that. So, love you all, and we're going to roll right into this with Alex Felice right after this intro.
What is the biggest real estate investing mistake that I've made and how did I change it? Well, I make them all the time, so I can't hardly tell you what the biggest one is, but a good one, a good big one is thinking too slow, thinking too small. I'm not really that ambitious of a guy. It might seem so from the outside, but I actually go really slow at things. Now, sometimes that hinders me. My first original goal was to get one property a year for 10 years. I ended up getting 8 plus my 24 unit in 3 years. So my goals were set way too low, and now I think my goals are probably set too low as well, and that's something that I work to overcome. If you want to grow in this business, you want to get big, then you need to get over single families as fast as possible. That they don't scale. They're never going to make you. They'll make you a nice little retirement if you just want a reasonable little retirement. They're good for diversification. But if you want to feel ambitious and you want to scale this thing to anything that's impressive, it's not going to happen in single families. They're not an efficient way to scale. Move to multifamily as fast as possible.
Alex's biggest mistake was thinking too slow or too small, and I kind of agree with him there, right? Like, I ended up ramping up fairly quick, but that first year I bought a house, and then I kind of did this, and I bought some raw land, like 5 acres that next year, but I didn't buy a property. Now my next deal was big, right? But I could have easily bought a property or two in the middle of there, and I didn't. And and there's been a couple times where I've slowed my roll through my own thinking. So I think that's crucial. In fact, I've talked to some other people. In fact, if you listen to the Brandon Turner podcast on the Military Millionaire podcast, Brandon says that his biggest problem was thinking too slow, right? Like going too slow. And now, granted, he doesn't regret anything, but he mentioned people like Joe Fairless, who similar, time frame, similar engagement, similar platform. And Joe had, multiple thousands of units under his belt through apartments, while Brandon was, doing fine, absolutely fine, but did not, right? He hadn't pursued those larger goals. Now he's changed that. And so I think that's a common one for a lot of people, is thinking, going too slow. And I'm not saying rush into things, but yeah. And up next, we've got Mr. Chad Carson.
The biggest mistake I made as a real estate investor was fairly early in my career. The first couple of years that I was investing, I have a business partner, and we went to a seminar class. And the person in the seminar was really impressive. They were teaching how to flip houses and buy and sell houses. And she was talking about her business model and how she bought and sold 50 houses per year. Well, my business partner and I wrote that down, and we thought, wow, we don't really have any clear idea or focus on where we're going with this business. Why don't we just borrow goals from this person in this class? That sounds good. I think we can do it. She just told us how to do it. And so fast forward a couple of years, we made that our goal to have some volume and buy and sell a lot of properties and acquire a lot of properties. And in 2007, we started in 2003, 2007, we ended up having 33 closings that year. And some of those closings were multiple properties. So we definitely bought over 50 properties in 1 year. Now here's the problem. We borrowed somebody's goals, but what was the purpose of getting big and growing and doing all that? Why were we doing that in the first place? And that's the problem, the mistake I made with borrowed goals. Was he got big, we started growing, we started adding some people to our team, we started increasing our overhead, we started moving really fast, and we made mistakes with some of our deals. So we bought some properties in locations that weren't as good. We bought some deals that we underestimated the repair cost. We bought some deals that had cash flow that wasn't quite as good as we thought, and it turned into negative cash flow. And we also, the timing of that, you never can predict exactly when things are going to happen, but it was 2007, was going into 2008, 2009, when things got really bad. The long part of that story, the short part of that long story, is that we survived. We had a lot of cash reserves. We were able to get through it. We adapted and had some luck as well. But I think that the lesson for me is that we learned from all that of getting big, getting fast, is that you don't have to borrow goals from somebody else just because somebody else looks like they have an impressive goal and they've bought 1,000 units and they've done 50 BRRRR deals and you've only done one. They're not better than you because they've done more. The goal of this business is to serve your life, is to have a lifestyle, an approach to life, have options in your life that allow you to do what matters. That's why I have the slogan on my channel, on my website, that doing what matters is your North Star. That's what you're trying to guide you through all of your business. And sometimes that means buying 5 properties. If you have a full-time job and you're just buying a few rentals on the side, that can be perfectly fine to stay small, to get those properties paid off, and that could pay for your lifestyle for the rest of what you need. For other people, getting big is fine, but the lesson is get clear on why you are doing the specific real estate goals you're doing. Don't just do it to look good on Instagram, to be impressive, to get on a podcast, or to compete with other people. Align your business with what's important to you, and make sure you continually ask the question, how is this helping me and my family accomplish what matters to me? And if getting big doesn't help you, forget about it. I know lots and lots of people who travel all over the world, who have nonprofits that make a big impact on their local communities, who are doing things that matter and nobody knows about them, and that's okay with them because they are fulfilled. They're doing what they enjoy in their life and they're making an impact. So I just want to leave that message with you. That was a lesson, a mistake I made. Luckily, we got some scars from those mistakes, but we were able to survive and kind of change our business as a result.
Now this is the other side of the coin, right? Chad went big without a why, so it was someone else's goal. He was just going big for the sake of going big, and he realized that you don't necessarily need to do that. So like he said, I have friends who travel the world and only have 10 or 12 rental properties, right? And so I think there's absolutely a middle ground here depending on your goal. And that's why it's important for you to sit down, figure out what your goal is, what your why is, what your 5 or 10 year vision is. Like if you want to be sitting on the beach, drinking, margaritas, Mai Tais, whatever, then maybe 20 rentals is enough. Maybe 30, maybe whatever that number is. But if you want to be like Grant Cardone, then you're gonna have to go big, right? So you need to figure out what is perfect for you and make sure that you know the reasoning behind that, and don't just go big for the sake of going big. Don't overscale for no reason. Now let's hear from Mr. Matt Faircloth.
The biggest real estate investing mistake I think that I made, I talk about in my book, Raising Private Capital over here. There it is. I talk about it in one of the last chapters of Raising Private Capital, that we made the wrong choice on a 1031 exchange custodian. And it turns out the 1031 exchange custodian that we chose was actually running a Ponzi scheme. And was taking people's money and squandering it that were supposed to go towards their next real estate purchase. And he had squandered a ton of money. We were a small piece of what he had squandered and stolen. So that was a big mistake, and that was a symptom of the bigger problem. The big mistake that we made was not asking for advice from a bunch of different professionals and vetting vendors and everything like that. And I could have just gone to my CPA and had my CPA recommend one of the best 1031 custodians in the world, but I did my own homework, read my own reviews, interviewed my own companies, and did it all myself, where I should have just gone to professional to get me to help me with something. And so I think doing things myself was probably the biggest mistake. And now I rarely do anything by myself, and I always cross-check and I always vet and I always make sure that the direction I'm choosing is the right way, without paralysis by analysis, but at least double checking to make sure, especially when choosing a vendor, that I'm getting a recommendation from somebody who knows them, especially in handing them quite a bit of money.
Well, that stings, and I've heard him talk about this before, but that stings, especially the story in his book, the 1031. I mean, that's a lot of money. Now, it worked out because he was able to roll it into another deal and then get all his investors' money back, but painful learning experience. And, I've kind of struggled with some of this before where, I thought I found a good person and I didn't vet through my referral network. So I think if you have rock stars know rock stars, right? So if you have a great person on your team or a great network and you have the opportunity to ask them what they think or who they recommend, that may be the best option. Or maybe if you have someone who's already doing what you want to do, like syndicators or whatever, it's worth asking them what they think about these things, because I think that there's definitely some value there. So I think that's great advice. Now, we're going to hear from Mr. Mike DeMazzo.
The biggest REI mistake I made was waiting. I'm talking about backing up from deals thinking I wasn't ready. To ensure that doesn't happen again, I approach things in a way where I don't rush into finding deals, but I'm not slow either in approaching it. the way I go about it now is to move with a purpose. What that means is if I want to get a house every 2 years, I want to have that plan laid out that I will get to my goal in 2 years.
Mike kind of agrees with Alex. I'm not going to go too much further into this, but don't slow roll, right? Like, don't wait if you're ready. Like, don't second guess yourself too much. Now, again, don't jump into anything too crazy, but make sure that you're doing your due diligence.
All right, so the biggest mistake that I've made in real estate was trusting without verifying. So when I did my first multifamily property out of state, I thought it was going to be very, very easy because I had already did a couple properties. I've been on job sites. I've done flips. This one needed a major renovation as well. I didn't think anything of it. I already had a team built, and I didn't think it was going to be a big issue to go out and build another team. However, it was. So the biggest mistake that I had was I hired a contractor. I did vet them. I pretty much vetted them. I went over their credentials, things like that. But what I didn't do was consistently stay on top of that contractor by going to the job site several times or having other people that was in my real estate network that was in that state go and verify what was happening or what should have been happening on the job site, right? So essentially this guy, he was saying a lot of things were done and they weren't done. I would try to get him on video chat so we can, he can do a tour with the property with me, something like that. But, sometimes he wasn't able to, or there was always something. So after about 3 weeks to a month of this going on, one of my inherited tenants, luckily she actually lived on that site, and she basically told me, hey, this guy's never showed up. So that prompted, a lawsuit, and that prompted a whole bunch of other stuff. Now, if I could go back and tell myself that again, what I would do is have my property manager at that time go check up on the person. Have my realtor that sold me that home go back and check up on the project. Have maybe even my insurance guy, go back and check up on the project just to verify that these things are actually being done during the rehabilitation portion of the home. So that is the biggest mistake that I've had, and that is how I would mitigate that from happening again.
And Dan says trusting without verifying. Yeah, I'd probably say that as well. To talk about my answer, I mean, I've obviously made mistakes, but I think my biggest one has been trusting that people will do their job that I pay them for. And I know that sounds like a crazy thought, but I live in this world in my head where, like, if you'd be a good person, right? Like, if you do what I pay you for, great. I would do what you paid me for. But that's not how people think. And so I got taken advantage of by a contractor. And it wasn't maybe necessarily 100% his fault. His business kind of imploded because he overextended. But yeah, I lost a substantial chunk of change, $30,000 on a flip, due to a lot of mismanagement things. Now, there were issues outside of my control, but I would have seen those much sooner had I been in control better of the whole situation. So I think that there's a middle ground here, right? And, unfortunately, I think that the answer is right. You can't just trust people to do their job. You have to manage them. You have to manage their expectations, and you have to make sure that you're ultimately responsible, right? So I take extreme ownership of that. I messed that up, and it's a very hard learning experience. I mean, that's 30 grand is 75% of my W-2 salary, right? Like that's my base pay anyway. That's intense. Like that's a painful, setback, like damn near a year. So just make sure that you know what you're doing, and make sure that you trust that others know what they're doing, and then trust that it's actually happening. So have those systems in place. This was week 5. Next week, we're going to be talking about their most important daily habit. And this is an exciting one because I love mindset stuff. So there's some good ones in here. Definitely don't want to miss it. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and the bell so that you get notified. And I really hope you guys are enjoying this. Comment down below if you guys are liking these videos and who else you would like me to have on this channel.